Hare Krishna, dear devotees. We are very grateful that you joined us in today's session, Gems from Srimadbhagavatam. And we have a verse that's filled with so many lessons. So let's immerse ourselves in this sweet Bhagavatam Katha, Bhagavad Katha. And today the verse is from 7th canto, chapter 2. The verse is 39. And there are some amazing revelations that we'll be visiting. Hare Krishna. I'll quickly share my screen and we'll get started. So, my dear devotees, please join us for the invocation prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiriyet Shravatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shimana Kirtanaha Hridayantasthoya Bhadrani Vidhunoti Suhatsatam Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatiruttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So today this verse is from Srimadbhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 2, verse 39. Yadicharayeshaha sajitadam avyayo ya eva rakshata valumpate chayaha tasya balaha krinanam ahurishitush characharam nigraha sangrahe prabhu. So again, it can be done in many meters. There is another meter. Yaha ichayesha sajitam avyayo ya eva rakshatya valampate chayaha tasya balaha krinanam mahurishitush characharam nigraha sangrahe prabhu. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The boy addressed the women, O weak women, only by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is never diminished, is the entire world created, maintained, and again annihilated. This is the verdict of the Vedic knowledge. This material creation, consisting of the moving and non-moving, is exactly like His playing. Being the Supreme Lord, He is completely competent to destroy and protect. Purport. In this regard, the queens might argue, if our husband was protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead when in the womb, why has he not been protected now? To this question, the answer is, Ya ichrayesha sajitam avyayo, ya eva rakshatya avalumpate chayaha. One cannot argue with the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is always free and therefore He can protect and can also annihilate. He is not an order carrier. Whatever He likes, He will do. Therefore, He is the Supreme Lord. The Lord does not create this material world at anyone's request, and therefore He can annihilate everything merely by His will. That is His supremacy. If one argues, why does He act in this way? The answer is that He can do so because He is supreme. No one can question His activities. If one argues, what is the purpose of this sinful creation and annihilation? The answer is that to prove His omnipotence, He can do anything and no one can question Him. If He were answerable to us concerning why He does something and why He does not, His supremacy would be curtailed. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please join us for Prabhupada Pranati so that we can seek blessings from the Acharyas. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripa tadaham vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So you may be wondering, who is this boy and what is this conversation going on? So let me give you a little background. Of course, we know that Parikshit Maharaj had inquired from Shukdev Goswami that is Lord partial, because he heard the killing of Vritrasura by the hands of Indra. But in reality, the Acharyas revealed that actually Vritrasura had won because he had gone back home, back to Godhead, while Indra, even though he had won the fight or the battle with Vritrasura, he was still attached to material things, so he was still in the material consciousness conditioned state. While on the other hand, when he asked that question, Shukdev Goswami revealed that a similar question was asked by Yudhishthira Maharaj. Now it's always of interest. When we hear that someone elder in our family had the same question as we had, we are very eager to know what's the response that they received. And Yudhishthira Maharaj asked the same question of Deveshi Narad, Sage Narad. He had asked to Sage Narad to explain how it appears that Lord is partial, but it was an opposite incident where Lord Krishna at the Rajasuya Yajna had just killed Shishupal, and the spark, the soul lightening up, as a spark visible to everyone's eyes, had risen from his body and immediately merged into Lord Krishna. Acharyas revealed that yes, it looks like that he received Sayujya Mukti, but in reality, it was Sarupya and Salokya, because Shishupal is none other than one of the gatekeepers at Vaikuntha, Jaya. So here, what is happening? So as the story progresses, Devashi Narad had narrated him, again to Yudhishthira Maharaj, the story of Jaya and Vijaya, how they were cursed by the Brahmanas. And so these two, Jaya and Vijaya, the gatekeepers from Vaikuntha, they are spiritual beings, came to the material universe, and they took the form of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. They appeared as sons of Diti. That's why they are known as Daityas. Daityas doesn't mean demons. Daityas means descendants of Diti, in the lineage of Diti. So here, it also shows very nicely that the lineage is sometimes carried out from the mother's side. As we see the Devas, many of them are known as Adityas. We know of 12 Adityas. The eldest one is Vivaswan, the sun god. And the 11th one is Indra. So they are brothers. Now they are half brothers and half cousin with the Daityas, the sons of Ditis, because Aditi and Diti both are married to sage Kashyap. And descendants of Aditi are known as Adityas, like Varun Dev, Mitra, and so many others. So here, what is happening? Hiranyaksha was going around to make his brother proud. He was showing his prowess. Hiranya means gold, the one who has, Aksha means sight, who has eye for gold. He's always searching for gold. So much so that Hiranyaksha had extracted so much gold from this planet Earth that the planet Earth lost its balance and fell in the Garbhodak Ocean. And so Lord Varahadev appeared and he lifted the earth. And with his potency, because he had touched the earth, he let the earth floating on the waters when he fought with Hiranyaksha, when Hiranyaksha challenged him. And he killed Hiranyaksha in that fight. And so everyone in the family of Hiranyakashipu, especially Hiranyaksha's wife and their children and the mother, they were all grieving. Hare Krishna. So in this case, Hiranyakashipu is, as soon as he heard that his brother has been killed, he was ready to avenge his brother. He said, Vishnu has taken side of the Daityas and he seems to be partial. And so he decided that he would send his men around and give a lot of difficulties to the cows and the demigods, and as well as the brahmanas, because he said the brahmanas, when they perform yajnas, that's the yajnas give power to the demigods, and demigods in return provide various kind of facilities. So he wanted to break that chain of getting, giving power to the demigods. So this is a very scientific process. And his plan was to break this supply chain so that the demigods will become weak and he can easily win over them. So much so that his, courts and his, part of his assembly, the members, they basically said that Vishnu has actually hidden himself in the heart of everyone as super soul. So he cannot be found in Vaikuntha. And Lord Shiva is already renounced. He is very simple. So we have nothing to worry about. Yet at the same time, when he comes home, what does he see? He sees that his brother's wife, his sister-in-law, she is grieving. She is grieving very much, loss of her husband. He sees his mother, Diti, also grieving, crying and all, and so are the sons of his brother, so his nephews and nieces. And so he tried to pacify them. And how does he pacify them? The same personality who's giving troubles to the brahmanas and all the pious people, he is speaking to his family members by saying, my dear nephews, for heroes to die before the enemy is glorious. Yes, in Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna also says that in the battlefield, if somebody is killed, then they go to heavenly planets and they enjoy heavenly riches and heavenly comforts. And if they are victorious on the battlefield, he's referring to Arjun, that if Arjun you win over, then you will have heavenly kingdom to rule over. So Hiranyakashipu is speaking exactly the same instruction that Lord Krishna spoke in Bhagavad Gita. And he's revealing that according to different fruitive activities, so based on our actions, there are reactions. So living entities, they come together within this material world. And again, they're separated by the laws of nature. So we are like vessels floating in the water. Sometimes we come together, sometimes we are away. So how should we take it? So he's giving this analogy that we should always know that the spirit soul is different from the body. So he knows about the living entity as the soul residing in the body. And he knows about the characteristic of the soul. The body is eternal. It's inadjustable, it's pure, it's all-pervading and aware of everything. So this should remind you of chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna is giving the same instruction. He's showing the characteristic of soul and how the 6 forms of transformation happens in the body because of the presence of the soul. The consciousness is the symptom of the soul. So he's saying that by the material energy, right, the conditioned soul takes birth in higher species or lower species of life according to various association. So yes, by the devotees, association matters. And so he's revealing them. And then he is giving an historical incident of a king. King Suyagya, he was a king of a country named Ushinara. And so this king, when he went to the battle, he was killed. But he was fighting so valiantly that sometimes when people in great, fighting mode, sometimes they're biting their lip. So that's like he was biting with his lips as he was killed by his enemies. But his body lay there. And his queens, they immediately came and they were crying and holding their husband's body, and they were thinking, oh, what would happen? What is going to happen to us? So they were not letting anyone, burn the body or take the body and do the following and after death rituals. So at that time, even Yamaraj became compassionate. And so he appeared like a young boy. And he gave instructions to these queens. So now it's very interesting. Sometimes we see when a young boy, comes in front of others and suddenly starts speaking Shastras, people become very interested. They're really impressed. Oh, wow, he's such a young kid and he's speaking such nice Shastras and such nice shlokas. So this is a very, this is a reflection, because in this particular story, Hiranyakashipu is telling his family members that this young boy is saying. So today the verse we covered is actually that young boy is speaking to the queens of King Suyagya. And King Suyagya is dead in the battlefield, and he's trying to help them understand that it's just the body that dies. The soul has moved on, and it has glorious ending, of this on the battlefield. So he will, of course, be on his onward journey. And Hiranyakashipu, after giving this, that how this boy is able to satisfy the queen so that all of the activities could be performed. He also related the activity of a Kulinga bird who was pierced by the arrow of a hunter, just in the same way as his wife was also. Once again, the female Kulinga bird, his wife was also shot by the same hunter. So as he's telling different stories to his family members, why is he telling them? Because he wants to pacify them. He wants to pacify his nephews. He wants to pacify his sister-in-law. He wants to pacify his mother, and relieving them of lamentation. And so these two stories, when he relates to them, Mother Diti is pacified. And Vrishabhanu, right, Hiranyaksha's wife, his Hiranyakashipu's sister-in-law, they understood what is happening spiritually. They are able to understand that, yes, Hiranyaksha has moved on. He had a glorious death on the battlefield. So, my dear devotees, it is easy to quote Bhagavad Gita when life is peaceful. But it is very hard to live Bhagavad Gita when life is painful. That's what is visible in this case. So again, sometimes people, they know. So again, sometimes people think of demons as people who are completely ignorant. But sometimes we see that these demons as they appear, or the Daityas, the descendants of Ditis as they appear, they may be engaged in demonic activities, but they are also great scholars. I'll give you another example of Jagai and Madhai in the Chaitanya Chaitamrit. We hear about their Leela, that these were Kotwals. So they were policemen, but they were opening Vedas to find which one is the most heinous, gruesome sin. And they were performing those sins just for the fun of it. So they were great Pandits, but they were misdirected in their application of that knowledge. So Hiranyakashipu, he knew the truth. He knew the Vedic knowledge. Vedas means knowledge. And he taught this truth. He narrated this truth to his family members. He preached this truth to his family members, but he could not live the truth. So his application, his actions were completely in contradiction to the truth that he had learned. So what does this verse today teach us? It's telling us that knowing philosophy is one thing, and becoming transformed by philosophy is another. Yes. Having knowledge is one thing, but having realization and its application is completely another aspect. Sometimes people, they pick up Bhagavad Gita and they're like, wow, I am going to memorize all these verses and become a great Pandit. Everyone will adore me for having read Bhagavad Gita. Well, that's only knowing. When you practice Bhagavad Gita, when you bring it in your life, then actually you get realization and you get immense peace. And right after peace comes spiritual bliss. You become very happy because you understand, you detach yourself from your life and you are able to look at your life from a different lens. You are able to look at a very depth. Sometimes you have to move away to get closer to really what is happening. And that's what this chapter is telling us, right? It unfolds three emotional layers that we see we are covered by. Now, what are some of these emotional layers? First is rage. The first 16 verses of this chapter, 7th canto, chapter 2, refers to the rage because, when Hiranyaksh, after he is killed by Lord Varahadev, Hiranyakashipu, he becomes furious. And so he plans to avenge his brother. So he's going to take revenge against Vishnu. And he orders destruction of Brahmanical culture so that the demigods do not get the power. Because he is feeling that Vishnu appeared to support the demigods. He has become partial. And so the demons, his, courtesans, his soldiers and generals, they start causing havoc to the society. They start to devastate the society. So here he sees God as biased and unjust. Sometimes this is the outlook people take. Why would God do this? We hear this. Why do bad things happen to good people? So this is just a reflection of exactly what Hiranyakashipu is thinking. And then the second aspect is diplomacy and consolation, right? So this is from 17 to 26 verse, he is discussing that. Then after performing all the, rituals of his departed brother's body, again, he is carrying it out. He turns into a philosopher. And he pacifies his nephews, his sister-in-law, his mother Diti. And he teaches that the soul is eternal and the bodies are temporary. And attachment causes suffering. So we know this particular factor because it's in Bhagavad Gita. Jayate Vishyan Pumsa Sangashte Shubhajayate Sangha Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodho Vijayate. Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha Sammoha Smriti Brahmsat Smriti Brahmsat Buddhi Nasho Buddhi Nashat Vinashyati. So this is the cycle of attachment, how it causes suffering. Dhyate Vishyan Pumsa. So when we are constantly thinking, dhyan, of what Vishaya Pumsa, of sense objects, Sangashte Shubhajayate, attachment develops. Sangha Sanjayate Kama, from that attachment, lust develops. Kamat Krodho Vijayate, and from that attachment, the lust, comes anger. And Krodhat Bhavati Sammohat, and this Sammoha, this Krodh, the anger, it makes us almost like blind, so it makes us bewildered. Sammoha Smriti Brahmasa, so our memory is completely bewildered because we are in delusion. And Smriti Brahmasad Buddhinasho, and then our intelligence is lost. Buddhinashad Vinashati, and when the intelligence is lost, a person is destroyed. In short, we can say expectation equals frustration. So when there is attachment, it causes suffering. And he speaks like a Jnani, not just a simple Jnani, he's actually quoting from the Vedas, from the Shastras. But he lives like a demon, like an Asura. So his actions are completely in contradiction. And what's the third aspect? That he is discussing about divine reinforcement. He's giving the story of Yamraj, right? He is narrating the story of King Suyagya who dies on the battlefield. And he is talking about his lamenting queens, trying to tell his family members, his nephews, his sister-in-law and his mother Diti, that they were also lamenting for the death of their husband. And Yamraj appeared as a boy, young boy, and he spoke Shastras. And then he talked about the story of Kulinga birds to prove that lamentation comes from ignorance. So yes, he knows the Shastra, he knows the application, but he is not applying it in his life. His actions are completely in contradiction. So what's the result? Well, the result is, because he's preaching the scriptures, that's why Srila Prabhupada said the scriptures are very powerful. Sometimes people, they can use the strength of these scriptures to divert the ignorant populace. But in this particular case, Hiranyakashipu is trying to pacify his family members, so he's able to pacify his family members, Hiranyaksha's wife, Hiranyaksha's sons, who are his nephews, and his mother Diti. And Diti becomes peaceful, his relatives become peaceful, and she forgot her grief. And he engaged her mind in understanding real philosophy, to understand, yes, the soul is eternal and the body is temporary. And my son has moved to a greater grounds, because this philosophy worked for her. It is coming from bona fide scriptures. But while Hiranyakashipu is preaching this philosophy, it did not work for Hiranyakashipu himself. He's still holding on to this attachment to his brother, and that he has to avenge his brother's death, right? So there's a central tension in this particular chapter. And this is not mainly about demons. This chapter is about us, my dear devotees, you and me, because it asks us a very important series of questions. It asks us, can we speak philosophy but disobey it? Because that's what Hiranyakashipu is doing. Can we preach surrender but practice resentment? Surrender is going with the will of the Lord. Resentment is, oh, why would Krishna do this? Questioning the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And can we just console others but remain angry inside? Sometimes we are trying to pacify others, but then we are holding on. These are innocent people. They cannot do anything, but I'll do something. That's what we're thinking. I'll have a plan above everything else. And that's what is Hiranyakashipu doing. And he proves that knowledge without surrender becomes hypocrisy. Sometimes we see that in the life, that we see a person who's carrying out. And that's why having disciplic succession is very important, because in disciplic succession, one follows an acharya and gets, by the blessings of the acharyas, he gets the blessings to follow their path, but not anukaran, which is imitation, but anusharan, taking shelter of their instruction. Srila Prabhupada became glorious because he understood the purport of the instruction of his spiritual master. When Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj in 1922, first time when Prabhupada met him, he said, why don't you preach this knowledge, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, to the Western world in English? Because you are a nice gentleman. You can do this. So he empowered Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada took that instruction to his heart. Even though he waited 11 years, in 1933, Srila Prabhupada got initiation from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada. He also wrote a letter when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj was about to leave the planet, so just before that, and he got his instruction again, same instruction by his spiritual master, that please preach this wonderful knowledge to the Western world. And Srila Prabhupada understood the purpose. So it's not that he just translated Bhagavad Gita in English. He took that Bhagavad Gita that was translated in English and Bhagavatam, first canto, and brought it to the Western world, so that people can understand what's written in it. Sometimes we read something and we understand, okay, this is what it is. Somebody is saying this. He went to the market. But why did he go to the market? Somebody reads a sentence. There has to be a context before and after. So Srila Prabhupada is providing in his purport, which are his translated ecstasy, he's revealing this truth of every verse in Bhagavatam, in every verse in Bhagavad Gita. So this verse today appears at the climax of a philosophical section. Why? Because after teaching body-soul distinction, after hearing Yamraja's discourse and observing practical detachment, Hiranyakashipu is summarizing creation, protection, and destruction are only by God's will. He is exactly quoting Yamraja's words. But while he is telling everyone that, he is not really taking it. So this is the theological peak of his speech. Yet, he does not surrender to it. He does not accept it in his heart. He has his own plans. So again, you may have your plan, I may have my plan, but Krishna has his plan. And we all understand whose plan Mother Nature, the material energy, will follow. Krishna's plan. So here, today's verse, again, we are looking at the core message. And Srila Prabhupada, he makes this core message very succinct, very clear. That Lord is Swarat. He is always free. This is in the very first verse of Srimadbhagavatam, the first canto, first chapter, first verse. Right? He is Abhigya Swarat. He is indisputably independent. And he is not our order carrier, but rather we should be the order carrier of the Lord. My dear Lord, how can I serve you? How can I satisfy you? For your pleasure, let me act. And so, since he is the Supreme Person, Lord Krishna, his acts, no one can question his acts. And if he were answerable to us, like the very last sentence the Prabhupada reveals, he would not be the Supreme. So again, He is supreme because he has complete, absolute sovereignty. He has complete control over everything, and his actions are fully justified. So sometimes people will say, why is this chapter so relevant? Right? Because this chapter is not about a thesis. Hiranyakashipu knew the thesis inside out. He understood the Shastras inside out. But this chapter is about half believers who, to influence others, they know the Shastras, but when it comes to practice, they don't practice it. And we see such people in our lives on a day-to-day basis. There are people, when we go out and try to give them Bhagavad Gita, like, no, I know Bhagavad Gita, I know exactly what Krishna said. We are the soul, we are not this body. But do you know what's the purpose of the soul? Jivera Surupaya Krishnera Nityadas Krishnera Tathasta Shakti Veda Prakash. So the living entity is an eternal soul who is an eternal servant of Lord Krishna. A servant serves the master. Lord Krishna is the master. But there is a tendency of people to think, oh, secretly, what do they think? Krishna should have done it my way. I know the best way to do it. And this reminds me of a nice narration. GBC, His Grace, Anuttama Prabhu. He sometimes goes for interfaith, and once he was in Vatican City, and he met with various personalities, and there he met a person and he was discussing. So this person was like, you know what? People in our faith, we all know who God is. So he's like, everyone in your faith knows who God is? The person said, well, everyone who goes to the church on a regular basis knows who God is. So his question was, so everyone who goes to the church on a regular basis knows who God is? It's like, actually, everyone in my church who comes on a regular basis knows who God is. So it's like, everyone who comes to your church knows who God is? Like, actually, there's an inner circle, the elders, we all know who God is. So it's like all the elders and rabbis and abbots, all of them know who God is. It's like, let me think. Actually, only I know who God is. You see where it's coming to? Sometimes people have this tendency that only I know who God is, and God should act as per my will. And everyone else should follow my will too. Because I am the all-knower personality, not realizing that Supreme Lord is the all-knower and we are the ignorant beings. So this chapter is not about atheists. This is about those half-believers who think that they know, but they cannot do as God wills. So today we'll be looking at this verse from the acronym KNOW, K-N-O-W. Right? So to avoid Hiranyakashipu's mistake, we must not only know, but also live what we know. So know means, K stands for the knowledge that Krishna is the cause of all causes. So we can say king of all causes. Yes, is the known cause of all causes. And Krishna alone, he governs creation and destruction. What does it help us do? So practical application wise, we can understand that this replaces blame with faith, that whatever Krishna is doing is in our favor. Bhoktaram yagatapasam sarvalok maheshwaram surhidam sarvabhutanam gyato amam shantim richadi. In Bhagavad Gita, verse 5.29 talks about this. Bhoktaram yagatapasam. So all yagya sacrifices, top austerity, sam, all these activities that we perform with mind, body, and words, and charity we do. All these, who's the beneficiary? Lord Krishna is the beneficiary. Sarvalok Maheshwaram. He is the supreme proprietor of all material and spiritual universes. So everything belongs to him. So he can do whatever he feels like with everything and anything. And he's Surhidam Sarvabhutanam. He is the best friend. He is a benefactor. So if someone is a best friend, of course, how can our best friend harm us? Sometimes our best friend disciplines us, chastises us, wants us to be a better ourselves. So that's what Krishna is doing. As a compassionate father, he wants us to be happy. And that's what we're all looking for. Anand Bhaya Vyasat. We're all seeking happiness. Yet at the same time, we are looking at the wrong places. So we have to replace blaming God with having faith in God and having faith in his instructions and following his instructions. And is no one controls him. He is Abhigya Swarat. He is indisputably independent. He is completely in control. He is the supreme controller. So he's never subordinate to anyone. Even the material energy serves him. Devi hi Shangudamai. Mama Maya Duratyaya. She is my energy and she is very difficult to cross over. Ma meviya prapadyante maya metam tarante. But those who surrender unto me can easily cross over it. Lord Krishna is revealing that even the material energy is working under his direction. And those who surrender unto him can easily cross over this material energy, which otherwise is very difficult to cross over. So we have to drop our entitlement mentality that I deserve this, I am the controller, I have my plans and my plans should be followed. Because that will only cause resistance, and that resistance will further cause resentment, blaming attitudes, comparison, criticism, and complaining. And further, the end result is misery. Now, in No, O stands for omnipotent arrangement. So again, even tragedy is under divine management. So we have to accept reversals without rebellion. That, my dear Lord, we should be asking ourselves, how can I serve you even in this condition? It doesn't matter what my conditions are. I have to find ways. So we should ask ourselves, how can we serve you? And W in No, K-N-O-W, W refers to will must be accepted. Whose will? Your will? My will? No, Krishna's will. So peace comes only through surrender to his will. And we have to practice internal submission. True submission internally, not like Hiranyakashipu speaking something on the face, yet at the same time having a different plan in our hearts. Don't people do that all the time? So we have to, this is where Krishna is engaging material energy, who's actually like a referee. She's actually on our side, helping us become a better us by serving Krishna. So Hiranyakashipu, he knew all four core themes of No, K-N-O-W. But he refused to submit to them. He did not, sometimes people have the skill, but they may not have the will to do it because the ego is coming in between. Aham mameti, I and mine. I refers to various designations of the body. Mine refers to various things belonging to the body. These are the two things that starts all other anarthas, kam, krodh, lobh, moh, man, masa. Again, lust, anger, greed, pride, envy, delusion, and so forth. So, Hiranyakashipu, even though he knew, but he could not submit to them, he became Prahlad's enemy, his own son's enemy. So now we have to go a little deeper into K, where K stands for knowing that Krishna is the cause of all causes. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Sarva Karana Karanam. Lord Krishna is the cause of all causes. So we have seen Hiranyakashipu's rage. We have seen Hiranyakashipu speaking Vedic philosophy. We have seen Hiranyakashipu recalling Yamraja's reinforcement. We have seen Hiranyakashipu saying that Lord Vishnu or Krishna is, fully in control. He is the cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction. So that is on the primary level. The secondary creation, maintenance, and destruction within our small universe is being done by the good avatars, Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. And while he is speaking all this, he has an internal contradiction. His actions are showing something else completely different than what his preaching is. So we can look at this at a greater level. where we are saying how Krishna alone governs creation, maintenance, destruction by his will, not by our demands. So this is a very important aspect that we should be looking at. Now, how do we learn it, relate to it with an analogy? You can imagine a child who's holding a remote controlled train set. So the train goes forward, stops, because the child is controlling through the remote. The child can put it in reverse, it comes back, reverses. Or it can just go on a circular track and goes in circle. Because the controller decides, the child who's having the controller decides how the train moves. So the little plastic passengers inside the train can vote all day, right? We want non-stop sunshine and no tunnels, but the train still enters tunnels because the operator is free to do whatever the will of the operator is. The passengers may scream, unfair, but the unfairness is only in their assumption that the controller owes them explanations. When the train pauses, the passenger thinks, oh, the world has ended. Everything has come to a stop. When it restarts, they think that the world was, wow, saved by our protest. They're thinking themselves to be the doer. But the reality is much simpler. The controller never lost control. And things were going on as controller intended or wished to do. So similarly, this verse says creation, protection, destruction occur by the Lord's will. And the moving and non-moving are like his plaything, meaning the supreme competence is with him, not with our emotional conclusions, not with our attachments. So here we saw how Hiranyakashipu, he is specifying his family members, right? Yet in the beginning, what's happening? Being killed by Varahadev, Hiranyaksh has, is dead, and Hiranyakashipu comes to know that his brother is dead, so he mobilizes demons and unleashes destruction, especially on Brahmanical culture. And later, he performs rituals and politically pacifies the grieving women, the nephews, with Vedic sounding truths. Even Arjun, when he gave the 5 reasons in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 1, observing the armies, also referred to as Vishad Yoga, that he is, lamenting about this battle at Kurukshetra that's being planned. So Arjun is saying, I have heard, this is coming in disciplic succession, but he is talking with respect to the body. So there are various kind of philosophies, Karma Mimamsa related philosophies, that are being spoken at times. Yet at the same time, we should understand from bona fide scriptures with right application coming in disciplic succession, which is descending knowledge, coming directly from Krishna through disciplic succession. Where, if somebody is speaking Bhagavatam, but it's a sobering Bhagavatam mirror, right? Somebody can speak Krishna's supremacy while still chasing egoic agendas, right? Therefore, real case not merely reciting philosophy, my dear devotees, it is submitting the heart to that supremacy. That is where our true test lies. That is where Mother Nature tests us. And we say, oh, this material energy is bad. No, it is the desires we hold in our heart due to the attachment to body, I, and mind is bad. And that's what we have to liberate ourselves from. And that is true transcendence. So Srila Prabhupada, he gives very nice insights in the purpose, which are very awakening to us. So one cannot argue with the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead because Lord is a big Swarat. He is always free. And he is not our order carrier. Whatever he likes, he does. And therefore, he is the Supreme Lord. And if you are answerable to us, then he couldn't be supreme. Ekale Ishvara Krishna Arasa Bhritya. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is revealed that only Krishna is the master and everyone else is his servant. Jivera Sarupaya Krishna Nityadas. Living entity is an eternal servant of Krishna. So these 4 are intentionally not generalized. They preserve the purpose edge. They preserve the essence, the mallow. That Lord Krishna's will is supreme. And our job is to surrender, not litigation, not have contradiction with his will, but just accept it. My Guru Maharaj would say, Lord Krishna alone is the supreme controller, and all other are his servants. So they dance as he makes them do so. Even when Srila Prabhupada came to US in Boston, he wrote the poem, Lord, you have brought me in this Western world. People are in gross ignorance, but I will, dance as you want to make me dance. Make me dance, my dear Lord. I'm paraphrasing his poetry. So the Lord is the cause of all causes. We have to understand from that perspective. And the ultimate sanctioning authority is also the Lord, not us. He decides, he wishes, and based on our karma, what is due to us. A father is Aham Bij Pradapita. He is the seed-giving father. So we are the seeds. And so as a father, he will always be looking for our welfare. Yet at the same time, we in duality makes this difference. This is good, this is bad. We make that when we're relating with the body. Yes, we have to rise above the attachment, and then we can say, whatever pleases the Lord is good, and whatever displeases him is bad. Anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya vajanam rakshishati vishwaso gopatitve varnam tatha. Atma nikshepa karpane shadvida shayanagati. So there are 6 limbs of surrender. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur elaborately explains this, and they all start with that cool mantra. Anukulyasya sankalpa. So do whatever is favorable to devotional service. Pratikulyasya vajana. And do not do any activity that is obstruction in your service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For Lord's pleasure, if something is a hurdle, don't do that. And Atma Nikshepa Karpane. So again, and of course, he is a maintainer, he is a protector, and we have to Karpane refers to be humble in our approach, be willing to surrender ourselves to his will, and perform all activities as his desire, as an offering to him. So he is the creator because he is the cause of all causes. Now, sometimes people have different perspectives they look at. So the student may tell the teacher, I deserve an A because I believe I would get an A. Well, the teacher can smile and reply, yeah, belief is good. Yes, but did you write the answers? The student may respond, well, I wrote intentions. This is what I intended. The teacher would smile back and say, intentions don't pass. Alignment passes. So what do we understand from this? The student asks, can I appeal to the principal? Teacher responds, yeah, you can. But the syllabus is still supreme. So the insight is, don't try to make Krishna your order carrier. Align your life with his will through bhakti, through devotion. And that simply starts with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sometimes you see a son may grab the TV remote and declares, I'm the controller. So many times it happens, right? There's a tendency of young boys to just go for the control, this remote control. And the father may calmly take the batteries out and leave it there just to see the reaction. The son may be pushing buttons furiously. Nothing happens. He shouts, this remote is offensive, it's ineffective. Father says, no, it's just powerless without the source. So what do we understand? The son is whispering, so I'm not the controller? The father may smile back and say, you are a dependent controller of your attitude. Right? Because it's an important lesson for us to learn that our control is tiny. Real supremacy rests with the Lord. So replace blame with surrender. Alignment is very much necessary. Many times we plan trips, right? We go on, say, maybe on a beach trip. So a couple may plan a beach trip, and suddenly what happens? Inclement weather happens. There's a rainstorm coming. So husband could say, oh, this is conspiracy. But the wife would respond, maybe it's mercy. Now you can finally rest. Because sometimes when you go on vacation, you come back in vacation from vacation. because you're so tired on that vacation. He says, no, no, it's injustice. Call the weather department. Well, a devotee wife was immediately respond, sure, ask them to sign a contract with your ego because you want things to happen as you desire. And he could say, well, fine, I'll accept. Sometimes this tendency is there, outwardly accepting, but I'm still upset. Well, you haven't accepted it if you're still upset. And so a devotee would just smile and say, acceptance begins where the lawsuit ends. So K means letting the Lord remain free. Faith isn't denial of pain. It is refusal to accuse God. So again, this is constant litigation against God. That's tendencies. God is doing all this. No, this is just our actions in the past that are causing the reaction. Sometimes people we see at the temple, the long lines, and somebody waiting for prasadam may say, why is the line so long? Because they just want, there should only be one person in this line, that should be me. And everyone should be just serving me, right? So the tendency is God should optimize temple operations. Well, the neighbor, person on the just next to them could say, maybe God is teaching patience. Usahan Nishyat Dharya. Dharya is patience. So when we are patient, we get special blessings. So this is a mercy. Well, the first one who's real little annoyed because of the long line and so many people ahead of him. The person in the line doesn't care who's behind him. They always care about the people in front of him, how long they have to wait. Right? No, God's job is to serve my schedule. When I'm here, everyone should be taking care of me. This tendency is very egoistic. And suddenly the server may announce, hey, extra sweet rice for those who chant while waiting. Well, the visitor would start chanting, right? Fastest in the line. Why? Because now they are eager to get the sweet rice. So when we stop demanding Krishna, serve our preferences and bhakti, it becomes joyful. It becomes more easily acceptable. And we taste the real plan of the Supreme Lord. There are so many incidents we see on a day-to-day basis. Once I heard that the disciple is, inquiring from his spiritual master, saying, Maharaj, Gurudev, I did service, but it didn't go my way. Means again, I was doing everything and everyone was, telling me no, no, no. So the Guru may ask, did you do service for Krishna's pleasure or for your scoreboard? And this happens many times with the book distributors. I went there 5 days continuously throughout the week, but I couldn't sell many books. And this person didn't go much, but he was able to sell. Well, there is Nityananda Prabhu's mercy that came their way. So for Krishna, and also sometimes people do it for the scoreboard. So in that case, Guru Maharaj would just smile and say, Krishna is teaching that he is the cause of all causes, not you, including the causes of your humility. He's making you humble. So it may be that our plans may fail by mercy of Krishna. And yes, Krishna loves us so much to let our ego go and let his plan succeed. Hare Krishna. So Devi, would you like to add?
Hare Krishna. Haribo. So these pastimes further help us reflect about how we should have this faith always, that Krishna alone governs creation, destruction, and he is not subordinate to anyone. All adversities, reversals are under his divine arrangement.
Yes.
And if we want to be peaceful, ultimately, we should learn. We should learn how to truly surrender to his will, not just do a lip service, but wholeheartedly understand it, accept it, and practice the internal submission. So Prabhuji, I think it's time. Today
Yes.
we started about 15 minutes delayed for reasons unavoidable. So dear devotees, we appreciate you all patiently went with the flow that also shows actually the internal surrender is nicely being practiced in many ways. So, Prabhuji, I think we can now conclude the call.
Gantra Srimadbhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Janant Koti Vaishnav ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Om.
Have a wonderful week in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.